This is Robert Phoenix. This is Robert Phoenix. And you are listening to the Astro Weather. All right, we are back for another week, another look at the celestial forecast in the inner sky. How is everyone today? How are we all doing? All 27 of you who are here, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I think I'll hang out here for a little bit and let some more people populate the room. We usually get about 150 in the first, 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes. And by the time we're into it, we get pretty close to 200 people in here. So that's a pretty good number for this time of day, and people coming in, beaming in from all over the world to hang out and talk astrology and other shit. So let's do a quick little meet and greet here while we're waiting for the stragglers. Michael Cisternino, 11:57. He is there. He is so there. The new next. This is a great thumbnail. Looks so peaceful and introspective while witnessing the vastness of the world. I felt like it was really very Scorpio. It's beyond the Piscean decan now. And there's that ocean there. We're still in Scorpio and the Cancerian decan. I don't know. I felt like it was a good image. Like I had an image in mind, right? And this is the handshake with AI. You know, you dial it in. I had to dial in a few different words, remove a few words, script it the way I wanted it. And it's like, oh, I kind of like that. We'll go with that one. That worked. But that's how, we talked about this on Friday with Matthew. It's a great interview, by the way. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And what I would call the ethical uses of AI. And my ethical usage parameter is that I will use AI if it allows me to do something that I really can't do, or if I could do, it would be incredibly time consuming. So for instance, I like to write. I'm not going to use AI to write. Why should I do that? It would be taking away a natural inclination and gift, which in some ways is like spitting in the face of God. So, and I'm not bad at graphics, but I don't have Adobe Photoshop, and I've not trained myself. The amount of time it would take me to come up with an image like the one for today's thumbnail would be time consuming. And there are days though when I don't use AI to generate the thumbnail because it won't. There are days where it won't do what I want it to do, and it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Like Sunday Night Show where I have Kash Patel and the love of his life, his twin flame, his burning twin flame, Alexis, who now has a SWAT detail associated, connected to her. Can you believe that? There's a SWAT detail that lives around her, is parked outside of her house, follows her to and from her place to Starbucks, right? Like that's the American taxpayers are paying for personalized SWAT detail for Alexis Wilkins. Thank you. Thank you for protecting our citizenry, Kash Patel. Where else in America can you get a personalized, governmental, detailed security service? Where else? Probably a lot of places. You just have to pay for it. And trust me, there's always a transaction going on somewhere, right? Anyway, I made that by hand because AI wasn't. I knew what I could do and it was going to be simple and I thought effective. I might have been able to do something a little bit more because the numbers were a little bit down on Sunday night show. But, c'est la vie. It's the way it goes. Let's see. Yeah. So, Rafi, I noticed that there was some issues. I was trying to get on some websites today, and Cloudflare was acting up. Maybe because there are some solar flares that are acting up. Maybe that's what's going on here. And we're having to deal with the Cloudflare as a result of the solar flare. Keep your eye on that. Mercury retrograde, Jupiter retrograde. We're going to get into I think, a much longer series this week over on 15 minutes, which, you know what? I did not put the link in. Let me do that for all you people in chat who are interested in today's 15 minutes. I'm going to put it in here. It's the water wars, the coming water wars, and Texas is ground zero. And we're going to be talking about that today. How long? Maybe 2 days. If I get 3 days out of it, we'll do 3 days. But if you look at this astrologically, here, let's bring up the chart of the day and let's get into the show. And everybody that's here, welcome. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you spending your morning with me. Okay, so we got to burn that one. We just got to burn the first one. It's weird. Just a weird thing. A glitch that I would love StreamYard to address. Okay, so we'll zoom in a little bit. All right, so what you're going to notice here, I'm going to walk you through the outer planets, not where they are now, but where they will be next year, with the exception of one more Jupiter retrograde back into Taurus. I'm sorry, Uranus retrograde back into Taurus. Once we get past that, Uranus is in Gemini for 7 years. 7 years. Uranus in Gemini. Boom. Right. Saturn and Neptune will be in Aries. We already have Pluto in Aquarius. What do you get when you add up all those outer planets? You get a lot of dry weather conditions. The planet itself is like a tinderbox. With the occasional ungodly downpour from Pluto and Aquarius, which we will see from time. It won't be like gentle cycle rains. It's like nothing, and then one part of the world it'll just completely burst like a balloon, and then there'll be massive effects due to water. But outside of those catastrophes, the outer planets portend a very dry time, a very dry, bone dry, tinder dry time, with the outer planets being in air and fire. Right, the 3-year run of Saturn in Aries is combustible. So one of the things that we're going to see, and it's already happening for a number of reasons, is the marshaling of resources. This would be both electricity and water, and it's for the data centers. It's for AI. They need the water to cool the data centers, and they need a lot of it, and they need a lot of energy to power them, right? So I'm going to get into this in Texas because there's a big water war that's going on, and we're going to see more of these water wars taking place. Bill Gates, who owns a shit ton of land in the middle of the country, also sits on top of some major aquifers, not just farmland, but the water that produces the crops that are part of that farmland. And it's just crazy that our ecosystem is tied to a very small group of people who have very definitive individual economic needs. And they always spin it for the greater good. Oh, this is for the greater good. A few people may suffer, but their suffering will enhance the lives of millions of other people. Well, if that's true, then you should compensate them for that, right? If you're going to take their water, then maybe you relocate them, or maybe you give them massive shares in your company so that they're compensated for other people's largesse, right? The greater good. It's always about the greater good. But just move all these planets forward. We have Saturn, Neptune, and Pisces now. So yeah, we'll get some rainfall, some water. Like we'll have mostly regular precipitation cycles, even though I do think that the Gulf current's been broken for years, mostly through geoengineering, but the Gulf Stream, rather. So we'll have more or less, I would say, regular precipitation cycles, more or less, until Saturn and Neptune go into Aries. And we'll still have Jupiter in Cancer, so we'll still have some water in the sky. But next year it goes into Leo, so we'll throw Jupiter there into Leo, right? That's more fire, more heat, the amplification of the sun. We're going to go through a very dry time here. And the climate change people, if they're looking at the astrology, they're rubbing their hands together, right? They're looking at the astrology saying, yeah, like the celestial weather is going to change, and it's going to be, we've been going through a global cooling, right? But with all this, we don't know. We don't fully understand at this point, right, how we are connected to the sun. There's this thing, like, where the sun theoretically is out there, right? And it does weird shit every now and then. And sometimes the weird shit is beautiful, and sometimes it disturbs communications, but we don't fully understand our relationship with the sun, right? And the sun is connected to our consciousness. It's all connected to our consciousness. And think about building all of these AI centers. And the United States isn't the only country that's doing this. China's building AI centers. India's building AI centers. They're building them in Europe. They're building them in Russia. They're building them in South America. They're building them down under, right? They're these things that are popping up like mushrooms all over the planet. They take immense amounts of energy. They take immense amounts of water. And so my feeling is that they themselves will begin to heat the planet. And you may say, well, that's absurd, but I don't think it is. That's my sense. You get them all running and humming, and you have all these other energy systems behind them, whether it's coal or whether it's petroleum, or they've opened 3 Mile Island again, which is what they plan on doing. That's what Microsoft wants to do. Hey, let's open 3 Mile Island again. Let's get that up and running. We can power our data center, building mini nuke plants. So all these things have the potential, I think, of rewarming the planet so it fits into the goal of the climate changers. So, oh, look, see, it is getting, well, it's getting warmer because of all the energy that's being expended, right, to transfer all these algorithms into some form of production. It's massive, right? So what does the sun do? Well, the sun sees what's going on or feels what's going on the planet, and it begins to make changes to its output, right? So it could be a dimming. It could be, oh, look, they're hitting a crisis point there on the planet. So I need to start throwing up more of these X-class flares and amplifying them and intensifying them so that these data centers and all this energy that's being pulled from the grid goes down, because the sun's ability to be the sun is dependent upon, in a lot of ways, our ability to be us. Right? I mean, there is a link in the consciousness between all the planets, and the sun is the most primary one. Anyway, and here we go. We're having sun talk with the sun today at 26 Scorpio, and we have Mercury retrograde. And are people out there experiencing Mercury retrograde? Have you had your dose of Mercury retrograde yet? I'm just asking for the management. I keep having this thought: you have to make extra keys. So that's on my list today. I need to make extra keys, because there's been a couple of moments where I almost locked myself out without a key, and I know I don't have an extra key laying around outside. So that's on my list. Get extra keys made. And I would suggest that for just about anybody. Have some extra keys made and hide them outside under rocks and shit, so you can get back into your place. And always give a key to one of your friends that you trust, who might be nearby. So if you ever forget where you leave the key in the rock, or maybe something happens, maybe some animal disturbs it, who knows, you can call your friend. So we got Sun Mercury conjunction, and Moon is coming in, and it is balsamic. Remember, I was talking about this on Sunday night, right? We're gonna have this late new moon. It's gonna be really, really weird. So by what? So tomorrow the sun is at 27, and Thursday it's 28. We get the new moon on Thursday. So we have this new moon in Scorpio, late Scorpio degree. Very, very intense. There's a lot of taboo in the air. Like right now, the moon is squaring Pluto, and I haven't checked the headlines today, but the Epstein thing is happening with this Mercury retrograde, and going back into Scorpio, where that is the taboo, the realm of the taboo, the dark, the hidden. Donald Trump's fourth house, by the way. He's got Scorpio, if I'm not mistaken. Let me think about this. Hold on. No, it's his third house. Ooh, that's gossip. That's big time gossip. Ooh, third house. Yeah. Because he's got Jupiter, Neptune in the second in Libra. So Scorpio would be his third. And he has the eclipse moon in his fourth house. Right? Could be a tough week. Could be a tough week for now. Apparently, Melania has tapped out. She's been tapped out for the last 3 years. The Stormy Daniels thing. Keep in mind, Melania is a very strong woman with a stellium in Taurus. She's got like 4 or 5 planets in Taurus. Fixed sign. And, when you deal with fixed signs, once they turn. They don't turn back. And apparently the Stormy Daniels thing, that was really early on. It was like, it was during the election of 2016 where they were trying to derail him with that. And that bled into 2017. And you have to wonder in some ways, right? You look at that time during Trump's presidency, it's a complete 180 from this one. Like everybody that surrounds him in that presidency is a potential enemy, right? Somebody who could turn on him, an established DC insider, like a complete 180, with the exception of Rex Tillerson. He was just a big oil guy. So now he's got all these people who are just bobbleheads. Like they're the complete, somebody should do bobbleheads for all of Trump's cabinet. And I'm not a TDS guy. I just think it'd be funny. You see Kash Patel bobblehead. They're public figures, so you can probably get away with it. The Pam Bondi bobblehead. The Dan Bongino bobblehead would be the body without the bobblehead. There's no head there. We haven't seen Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino, I think, had a nervous breakdown. If you really want my opinion, he had a nervous breakdown. So this is a big week. Moon squaring Pluto, and if you work in hospice this week, I've never said this before, but if you work in hospice this week, this is a very intense week. This is a very, very intense week. There's this feeling I don't want to be my own headline maker, but there's this feeling that death is more imminent and in the air. In fact, I was watching a video last night of Mark Farner from the Grand Funk Railroad, and Mark Farner is really interesting because he's so energetic and he's still around and he's still touring. He's a big Christian, and he had a near-death experience. So that's how I spent my Monday night. I started to listen to Mark Farner's near-death experience. He'd be a really interesting guest because he talks about what happened and how liberating it felt. And he talked about something that was really interesting. And I think it kind of goes along with all this Scorpio. He talks about debt consciousness. I thought, wow, that's fascinating. Like, he has some insight into the concept of debt, where it was not healthy, right? Not his insight. His insight was healthy, but debt is not healthy. And he was able to expand upon it a little bit. And clearly he was talking about financial debt and being a slave to financial debt. Because if you know anything about Grand Funk Railroad, I mean, it's a horror story what happened to them. They entrusted everything to their manager, Terry Knight. And at one point, Grand Funk Railroad were the biggest group in America. They were the band that started off the stadium concert craze. And believe it or not, they sold more tickets to their show at Shea Stadium than the Beatles did. Grand Funk Railroad was the most popular band in America. They were the working man's band. They always toured. And they wound up losing everything. As a group, they had to regroup, start over. They got Todd Rundgren to produce American Band, which was very, very radio friendly. And they had never really done a very radio friendly song like that. That was the first 45 I ever bought. It was on yellow vinyl because I loved that song. It fucking rocked. It still rocks to this day. And so they came back from being completely ripped off by their manager. But then Mark Farner gets screwed over by Mel and Don in the band for trademark rights. So he's very well aware of this idea of debt. And I think he also equated it with feeling like you owe something to other people. So he was really expanding on this idea of debt consciousness and what we carry with us. And when he was away from his body, it was like the chains of this debt consciousness were lifted off of him, and he felt very liberated and free. And it feels like with all this Scorpio, we're dealing with the gravity of our choices in the hell realm that peeks through this world. I had a very intense dream last night. I was in my teens and maybe 16, 17. And I remember my dream that the devil was looking for me, right? It wasn't a spirit. It was somebody who embodied the spirit of the devil. And they had like a group, and this group was a cult, and they were looking for me because they were there to come claim me. It was really weird. It was a very weird dream. And I remember trying to appeal to my birth father in my dream. Hey, can you stop this? and I was in this panic, and doing everything I can to, Van Halen, not running with the devil, running from the devil. Um, this is where we are. I mean, this whole alley, let's call this debt consciousness alley here, because Scorpio is also about other people's money, right? It's about other people's money and dealing with it and dealing with the ramifications and dealing with the personal debt that goes along with that and what you have to do in order to ameliorate it in your own life, which means getting out of debt, which I highly recommend if you can do. But it's really hard. There's just ticky-tack taxes and payments for everything. It's really ticky-tack taxes and payments for everything. So this is what this Mercury retrograde is about. It's what this balsamic moon is about. There is some effort here, right? Because the moon is in a fixed sign, so you have to put some effort forward. But it's like this whole idea of surrender and letting go is not a passive one. You have to put some effort into it. Sort of like what people go through when they are on their deathbed, and they struggle and they struggle and they struggle, and they're freaking out. And they know that this is it. Like, they're terrified, and then all of a sudden something generally comes over them, and hopefully it's not the morphine. And they realize that they're transitioning to a new realm, and this is not uncommon. However, some people will live with panic to the end, which is a terrible thing. So we're in a very interesting phase. Mars marches forward and continues its crusade through Sagittarius, getting ready to go into the second decan, the Aries decan. And this is going to be very fiery, this expression of Mars. Last day, it's in a sextile with Pluto. Tomorrow it moves out of aspect. We have some, the geometry is really interesting today. We have that grand trine, we have kite patterns, we have mystic rectangles, not quite a grand cross, but there's a lot really happening here. On the other side of the chart, we've got this Uranus-Sun opposition. Prepare for the unexpected. Expect the unexpected. That is a theme for today. Now, I'll give you a hint here. What looks to be like a setback or a loss can flip. So if something comes up and it looks like you have to cancel something or not go somewhere or whatever those things are, like last minute shit, don't worry about it. It's actually going to work out in your favor. It'll work out in your favor for whatever reason, right? You'll be in the right place, right? This is one of those times where it feels like with all this retrograde, people are it's like Zeus is moving the chess pieces around on the chessboard, and we feel like the chess pieces. And that's not always really pleasant for some people, because for some people, they like to feel in control of their lives and their destiny. And, they have their to-do lists and they burn through them, and it gives them a sense of accomplishment. And I'm not knocking that. Like, there's a beauty in that, right? But that's not where the outer planets are. The outer planets are, the universe has the first move. Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, Mercury, all retrograde. So if things aren't working out, if your plans aren't immediately coming to fruition, don't worry about it, right? There are things that are being rearranged on another level, where if you're patient and you can sort of sit with it, you'll figure it out. I remember one time, this actually worked for me. I'll give you a story from the past. I had been reading this book, I'm Not Here, by Bhagwan Das, he was the first person to really go to India and experience the Das tradition, right? And then he meets Ram Dass, and Ram Dass comes back and writes Be Here Now, and he becomes the really successful one. And Bhagavan Das, Michael Riggs, is kind of floating on the coattails of that, which is kind of interesting because Ram Dass was an Aries. And of course, he's going to be the one that's going to write about India. He's going to be the one to write about his guru. And he's going to write about it and be here now. But he does mention Bhagavan Das. Well, Bhagavan Das, a.k.a. Michael Riggs, is a Taurus. So he's on the coattails of Bhagavan Das, sort of drafting, right? He's drafting. He comes back from India, and he's this, kind of cause celeb. And I read his book, and there was something in his book that I thought was really interesting about how he had to, like, conquer something or deal with the fear of something. And I tried it out, and I was, I think I was around 38 or 39, and I was in Idaho, Sun Valley, and I was snowboarding, and I had never snowboarded before. And I was in pretty good shape. My body was still pretty responsive, but it wasn't like skiing. It felt weird, but I'm like, let me try this. And so I got up to the top of this mountain, and here I am. I've never snowboarded before. My feet are locked into this thing. How am I supposed to go about doing this? Most people take a lesson. I didn't take a lesson. What I did is I laid down at the top of the mountain on the snow, out away from everybody. And I say lay down, like I was laying down and leaning on like my right arm, and then laying back, putting my head on the mountain. And I just thought to myself, let me make friends with the mountain. That was my strategy to learn how to snowboard. Let me acquaint myself with this mountain. I have the purity of intent. And at a certain point in time, I said, I'm ready. And I got up and I started to navigate down the hill. And I got pretty good at it. And I must have done at least half a dozen runs that day and snowboarded down that mountain. And to this day, I think it worked. Like, for whatever reason, I just didn't go half cocked down the hill. Here I go. Right. I decided, let me bond with this mountain. Let me tap into the strength of the mountain. So if your plans are getting rearranged, this is the long way around town. If your plans are getting rearranged, don't try to solve them immediately. Just wait. Sit back and wait a little bit. Right? Sit in your car, close your eyes, and just maybe even put your feet on the road. Right? Like ground with the ground. Because that's going to be your navigational tool in your path. And just sit there. Right? Don't be in a hurry to change everything and to address everything. Because I guarantee you this opposition. The other thing too is, I'm not sure we're done with these S-class flares. And we have this opposition with Uranus. So the idea, if we can play the game, right? The idea is that this is us right here. We're in the center, right? And there's the sun, and it's on the eastern horizon. And here's Uranus all the way across from us. So we're caught in the crossfire of Sun Uranus. And we know Uranus is fucking disturbing, right? And it's retrograde. It's like, here we go in Taurus, the wrecking ball, and we have these X-class flares or whatever solar activity is being emanated from the sun, right? And it's coming at us. And Uranus on the other side, in some ways, is also part of this picture, right? It is eliciting what's being discharged from the sun as much as we are in this oppositional position. So you're going to get energy that's going to disturb things like what's going on with the internet and Cloudflare. Like it's going to it's going to seep into our systems. And you may experience that with like Google Maps or, your car navigational system. This is the kind of aspect that could really fuck with animals as well. So if you're driving in rural areas, particularly near sundown or at night, be on the lookout for animals during this Sun Uranus opposition, especially deer. Man, they just come out of nowhere. Deer are a nightmare out here. I can't tell you how many deer I just see on the road every day. It's brutal. The roadkill here in Texas is you can't drive more than 5 miles without running into at least 1 to 2 forms of roadkill. Pluto Jupiter opposition and squaring Chiron, but Jupiter is also in this grand trine. I don't think it's a bad thing to invest, but you want to be careful what you invest in. I'm not sure you want to go digital. Looks like there's going to be another dump here coming up soon. Eric Trump just signaled that he's going to sell a shit ton of Bitcoin. And so when the Trumps fart in the Bitcoin market, the rest of the room leaves. But there are investment opportunities. I'm telling you, the water thing, it's going to be a vice. It's going to be right up there. Water will be like a vice. It'll be like a vice tax. If you want to make money, invest in private water. I'm telling you right now. If you want to make money, if you want to be one of those people, invest in private water. Now, maybe you can find one that has some integrity. Good luck on that. This all started with Nestle and the privatization of water. And it started to happen here, like in where I live. The company that basically bought this aquifer is out of Pennsylvania, and they own a number of different aquifers. So they've privatized our water, which theoretically should just be here for us, right? Like if you wanted to put a well in your backyard, there's enough water here to be able to do that. There's somebody from chat. Their father actually built all the entire water system out here. I think he lives in the Dallas area now. Sweet Woodruff, her father built the entire water system that I shower with on a regular basis. Okay, that's a lot of information. If you haven't derived something out of today, there's not a lot of air in the sky. Well, you got to be objective. This is the difficult part. That's why it's important to take time out. If your plans get disrupted, just take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, slow down. Because the way, if you slow down and you are in the moment, and I'm telling you, put your feet on the ground and just say, where do I need to go? How do I need to navigate this? Right? And just be aware of what pops up. And the path will clear for you. If you react and you are changing plans and flipping and you're harried and you're panicked, it's not going to go well. It is not going to go well. All right. Let's get a banner up here. Yeah, we got 202 people. That's about right. All right. Let's get into our True Hemp Science star of the day. Let's see. Yes, I've seen that. I've seen that video. Thank you for sending that to me. Hold on. Here, let's do this. All right. Your True Hemp Science star of the day is Jack Tatum. Before we unfold the tale of one of the NFL's most feared players, let's talk about True Hemp Science. True Hemp Science is your one-stop shop for all things CBD. If you go there now and you're a first-time buyer, you will get a big discount on your order. If you type in 15MINS, on top of that, you'll get the goodie bag as well. If you're there as a returning customer and you spend $100 or more, 15MINS is the goodie bag. And if you're a returning customer, there's a pretty good chance those goodie bags get a little bigger and goodier as time goes on, as Chris gets to know you. So repeat business and being a repeat customer certainly has its advantages. And it's some of the best CBD you'll find on and off the internet. So truehempscience.com is your one-stop shop for all things CBD. 15MINS is your code when you check out to get the free stuff. Under $50 always gets you free shipping. And there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. All right. So you see how I did the silver and black today? Silver and black, Jack Tatum. Jack Tatum, when I was a kid, he wrote a book. It was an autobiography. And I give Jack a lot of credit for writing. Of course, he had a writer with him. But the book was, They Call Me Assassin. It's like, so the book was available at the library, and I checked it out, and I read it from cover to cover. I think I read it in about 3 or 4 days. And it was about Jack Tatum's early life, playing for Woody Hayes at Ohio State. I mean, Jack Tatum is from Cherryville, North Carolina. I mean, could you imagine growing up in Cherryville, North Carolina? That's a sharecropper town. Like, that gives you an idea of Jack Tatum's background. And winds up playing for Woody Hayes at Ohio State. And there was another guy who played there by the name of Tim Anderson, who the two of them were a very feared duo in the defensive backfield. And of the two, Tatum was the one who was the game wrecker. Jack Tatum took great pleasure in knocking people the fuck out. Okay. That's his claim to fame was. Yeah, he could intercept a pass. He could probably wreck pretty well. But what he was really well versed at is putting somebody on the sidelines. That was Jack's game. And he talks about it very openly and frankly in They Call Me Assassin. Now, you look at his ascendant. He's got Gemini there. He's got the moon there and his Uranus there. Like, Jack is interesting because on the one hand, he talks of great fondness for some of his teammates. Like, he loved George Atkinson, who just recently passed away. Loved George Atkinson. George Atkinson's nickname, they all had nicknames, was Dr. Death, because they both, let's face it, they were dirty players. They played up to the whistle and then some. And even when they were playing in front of the whistle, they'd hit you when you weren't looking, right? They were always, borderline blotter sheet, these guys. And Tatum's got Uranus on his ascendant. So he's going to run by his own code with that Moon-Uranus conjunction. And one of the things that he winds up doing is he winds up hitting a pretty good wide receiver for the New England Patriots by the name of Darryl Stingley. And Jack Tatum paralyzes Darryl Stingley from the neck down. It's one of the more tragic events on a football field. And Jack Tatum felt no remorse whatsoever. Like, I mean, you can see sort of the cold, chilling, like, I don't give a fuck with Moon Uranus on his ascendant. He never went to visit Stingley in the hospital, never apologized. Like, he never apologized for being Jack Tatum. Never. And for some people, that could be like a major critique, but that's just not how the guy was wired. I mean, look at his Mars-Jupiter conjunction. He's got Jupiter in Capricorn. It's the highest planet in his chart. He wanted to be the best and the baddest at what he did. If Mars in Sagittarius is like a missile being shot through Jupiter, 6-degree orb, but still a conjunction nonetheless. And he's got Mars-Pluto trine. He's got Pluto in Leo. He had no. The only time I ever saw Jack Tatum in any amount of duress, and it was about 50-50, was when he met Earl Campbell at the gold line one time. Jack Tatum was one of the few people that knocked Earl Campbell backwards. And Earl Campbell talks about it to this day, still around. He said, when Jack Tatum hit me, it felt like somebody hit me with a tuning fork across my entire body. And I just started humming, but I don't think it was a good thing. And then he fell down, and he felt that hit for a long time. And Tatum even kind of like lurched. It was like the irresistible force met the immovable object. And you could tell how important football and even the team was for Tatum, because he's got all these planets in the he grew up poor as shit. You could tell, like Saturn and Virgo, right here on the descendant. And I think Jack Tatum was aware of his status, and he never wanted to experience that ever again. And he would do whatever it took. If it took being the biggest, meanest, it wasn't the biggest, but the meanest, nastiest guy in pro football, that's what Jack Tatum was going to do. Now, some of you might be familiar with Officer Brandon Tatum, the guy who is the butt of many jokes these days. That's Jack Tatum's nephew. Brandon Tatum played football at, I believe, Arizona State, if I'm not mistaken. So for Jack, he has all these planets in the fifth house, so he's going to excel. And he's going to excel at athletics. He's going to excel at performing. And he's got a sun Pluto square. He was take no prisoners. Unfortunately, he succumbed to diabetes. He lost part of his leg. It wasn't like he got off scot-free with the Darryl Stingley thing. Like, Jack's health really deteriorated. And he still managed to try to carve out a career after football. He played one season for the very same Houston Oilers that Earl Campbell had played for and was still playing for at the time that Jack showed up. But everything with the exception of, I would say, Jupiter, we'll even throw the moon in below the horizon. He's a moody motherfucker too. Like, I wouldn't want to catch him on the wrong day. With that Moon Uranus conjunction, I think he could turn on you. Definitely turn on you. And he was working something out. I wonder how old he was when he hit Stingley. Because that's his kairotic crisis is a 28 Scorpio. The weird thing about Darryl Stingley is that he shows up years later in one of Charlie Murphy's stories. And it's Charlie, Eddie, and a bunch of people, and they're at a club, and Daryl Stingley is at this club, and he's in a wheelchair. He's a paraplegic, and he's got all these chicks with him. It's a weird story. And because Daryl Stingley was in a wheelchair and Eddie was he was a chick magnet. This is like peak Eddie Murphy, and all these chicks are around Eddie Murphy, and Daryl Stingley. The guy's in a fucking wheelchair. I mean, talk about cojones. He starts like bad mouthing Eddie Murphy. And he's thinking because he's in a wheelchair and he's a quadriplegic, he can get away with it. Charlie Murphy talks about how he went over there and set Daryl Stingley straight. I'm like, I'm not sure who's more cold-blooded, you or Jack Tatum. I said, when I heard that story, I'm like, that's fucking weird. It's a good thing he played for the Raiders because he's got that Saturn-Uranus sextile. No other team would have tolerated Jack Tatum. Al Davis loved him. Just win, baby. Just win. So with the right authority figure, even Woody Hayes, like it's weird, right? Like Woody Hayes and Al Davis were these big personalities. And Woody Hayes was kind of old school, but Woody was an Aquarian. So he had a lot of latitude for players who could play for him and try to mold them into reasonable men and playable teammates. So he just let Tatum do his thing. I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame or not. He should be. The book is a great read. It's a fast read. He wrote 2 other books after that, which I have not read. Some of the stories he tells in the book are fucking hilarious. I think it's the first there's a couple of other football books before this one that were written. But I'm not sure if as much of the locker room stuff made it into those books. Let's put it that way. Okay. That's about it for today's show. Jack Tatum, True Hemp Science, Star of the Day, the Assassin. That's a perfect name for somebody who's a Scorpio, isn't it? Jack, the Assassin, Tatum. All right. We'll be back tomorrow with more of the Astro Weather. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart 2 steps once possible. Thank you all for being here. I'm Robert Phoenix. God bless. Treat each other well. Bye for now.